Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Wolverine.com postgame show here on our YouTube channel. If you're watching live, different vantage point for myself, Anthony Broome, today from the field here at Michigan Stadium. Ryan Van Bergen joining us virtually after a night game here at the Big House. 110,000 fans witnessed what was ultimately a 21-16 win over the visiting Purdue Boilermakers, a team that came into this game 2-6. Michigan was a 21, I think a 21 and a half point favorite, and didn't even get to 21 and a half in their team total for this game. There are so many directions we can go with this. I'll start by saying that was, and I said this on the board, I said it on social media. That game was like thinking you were going to get a ribeye steak and then instead ending up with a gas station burrito. It's sustenance. It's winning. I mean, you'll take it. It doesn't exactly whet the appetite, but it got the job done. But I think you walk out of this game first and foremost feeling like the bye week is coming at a great time. This team is super injured. There are things I think that ail them, specifically with maybe Bryce Underwood hitting a bit of a freshman wall that I don't think you can fix during a game week. I think you're going to need the bye week to make some of the tweaks that they need to make. And ultimately, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is just a wet fart of a performance against a team that has nothing left. They will not win a game the rest of the year. They will go 2-10. They haven't played many close games at all this year. There's not whole lot of silver linings to take out of this. And I'll be honest. I mean, if anyone's here looking for that, I don't think we can give it to you. This was a clear regression and step back even from what last week was. And it's disappointing, but you'd rather be the team that sort of craps the bed and loses as a big favorite, or that sort of craps the bed and wins, albeit not as by much as a big favorite, then loses entirely, which I didn't think they were ever in danger of that in this game. But Ryan, it was just it was ugly. And thank God for Jordan Marshall.
Thank God for Jordan Marshall. Thank God for our offensive line being able to execute when there's really no help in sight from the passing game. I know we'll break that down more as we get into it, but I'm going to try and brush this game with as much optimism as possible because after the Michigan State game, I felt so negative after a win over a rival. And I am of the opinion now that from here till after Thanksgiving, the win is the most important statistic. Did you get the W? And they got the W today. There's a whole lot of things that I feel like are challenging this team. Injuries and losing so many guys at different depths of different positions, and those could all be probably coined as excuses if you wanted to put it that way for playing poorly. But um, they were able to get the job done today, and at least in the first half, from what I saw, we at least tried to open up the playbook a little bit. We challenged Bryce Underwood. He didn't rise to the challenge, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but we made an attempt, I felt like, to get a little bit more creative offensively. I think we turtled at the end just to try to hold on to the win because we were holding on to our asses, which is not the position we wanted to be in. But let's be realistic. There's definitely been Michigan teams and other teams in the Big Ten that have been good teams that if the circumstances happen to those teams in terms of injuries and things and turnovers in the red zone, they don't win this game against Purdue. So I will tip my cap to Michigan as a whole for winning the game. I will tip my cap to Wink Martindale for what they were able to do with how much they were out there defensively. I will tip my cap to Chip Lindsey for winning this game with the circumstances they were provided. There's a whole lot left to be desired, but I'm going to be on this podcast and say, overall, I'm happy that we got this win.
And you don't apologize for wins right now. I think what it does for me is let's tap the brakes on the Ohio State stuff. Maybe this team can make the college football playoff stuff. And I think to a certain extent, we did that last week. But this is one where there's so much to correct. And I come out of this Saturday not only feeling, I just said I wasn't going to talk about Ohio State, but you saw an Ohio State team on the field against Penn State, albeit a Penn State team this week that is complete. Their season's over. Their heart has been ripped out. there's nothing left for them to play for except maybe getting to a bowl game. But even that's not going to make anything that's happened there better. But you saw Ohio State start to round into form, and I think start to find that gear. And we're now 9 games into this Michigan season where I think there is a gear to be reached still. I think this team is still more talented than it was last year. I think they're better than they were last year. This is probably a game that last year's team maybe finds a way to lose, which is weird to say on a night where your quarterback turns over the ball twice. But we'll talk about the offense, the defense. We'll hand out our game balls. We'll take your questions throughout. Super chats. We'll move you to the front of the line. So if you want to get those in there, feel free. Because I'm doing this down here, I don't have access to those, so those will have to be put up on the screen. But we'll get to all of it. Probably a bit of an abbreviated show tonight because I don't want to fixate too much on a lot of what we've seen, and maybe a little bit of the conversation is geared toward what this team needs to do at the bye. So before we get into, we'll take a super chat here from AM89 for $10. He said, I talked myself into some excuses for the MSU sloppiness since it was a road rivalry game, but even with injuries, I can't excuse much here. I think you can excuse some of the things you saw on defense. I mean, Ernest Hausman, who I thought played a very good game, is playing linebacker out there with true freshmen like Nato Wusu-Boateng, and Chase Taylor got some run. Troy Bowles got some run out there. He's been solid on special teams, but not a lot of defensive reps. There was a lot of youth, a lot of younger guys that was getting work out there with Jimmy Rolder out, with Cole Sullivan out. Offensively, the sloppiness it's something that, they'll need to address, with or without, you would think without Haynes, that would be the area maybe you're most concerned, but Jordan Marshall steps to the plate the way he does, and we'll talk about him here. But I think the sloppiness on offense has a lot to do with youth, and maybe, a guy like Underwood hitting that freshman wall, which I do want to spend some time on when we talk offense here. Before we get into it, though, I want to shout out our friends. Well, first off, Ryan and the team over at Blue Lion Fitness. What do you guys have going on over there this week? It's November now. We're trying to get in the best shape we can before Thanksgiving to maybe give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room on Turkey Day and into the holidays. What do you guys have going on over there?
Yeah, so Blue Lion Fitness is bumping. This is typically one of our busiest times because, just like you said, everybody knows what's coming. The black hole of calories that is Thanksgiving to Christmas Day, and the islands in every kitchen that are loaded with cookies and treats and brownies. If you want to attack these holidays with an opportunity to have a deficit in your calorie system, come to Blue Lion Fitness, check out our app, book a class. Doesn't matter what level athlete you might be, even if you've never seen a weight or touched a weight before, our classes will get you right. Coaches will be on top of you, making sure you do everything correctly. They'll give you weight suggestions. They'll get you through your hour class. Best hour class that you're going to find, most effective hour class that you're going to find. So if you ever thought about it and you've been on the fence, make the jump, book the class. Let's try the first one.
Love it. We are also brought to you tonight by our pals over at BRUNT Workwear. You can use the promo code Wolverine to get some money off of your order. I usually have the read right in front of me here. I don't tonight, but $10 off at BRUNT using the code Wolverine at bruntworkwear.com/Wolverine. I've said it a few times. When we have night games, my wife loves night games because that means I get to do stuff around the house before I leave for Ann Arbor. Today I was up on the roof cleaning off some leaves, doing some fall cleanup here before we get into the winter doldrums. And I had my work boots on, and they were those BRUNT Workwear boots that they sent out to us a few weeks ago. So use that promo code Wolverine for $10 off your order as the Michigan Marching Band is screaming to the left of me right now. Shout out to BRUNT. Thank you guys for being great partners to us throughout the football season. All right, offensively, we'll start with Bryce Underwood, because this is a game where I think he went 13 for 22. Wasn't the best performance. And actually, let's just talk about Bryce. Ryan, I'm going to mute myself here while the band leaves the field.
Bryce had probably one of his worst games since he's shown up in Ann Arbor. And that's, I think, something that we've been expecting almost, is for him to have a game or two. And now Michigan State wasn't his best game, so this would probably be 2 games that he hasn't had his best. But I kind of want to pump the brakes on the criticism of Bryce Underwood because, 1, he's young. 2, he has had very little opportunity in game to make decisions and make throws. I feel like a lot of the times he's being presented with one read, and when that read's gone, get out of the pocket, make something happen. So I thought what you saw from Bryce Underwood today, I'm not going to say that he wasn't off. He was off 100%. Anybody could see that. A lot of overthrows, a lot of high balls. But if you watch how he stands in the pocket on those throws that he's making, when he missed Klein on the wheel route, that was a walk-in touchdown. Those throws that he's making, he's off his back foot. His momentum is carrying himself backwards. A lot of the times when he's bailing out of the pocket, he's in rhythm of the pockets collapsing, but the offensive line's getting a little bit better. That and Purdue, I don't think has the best pass rush to challenge them. Bryce Underwood was early getting out of the pocket a lot. He was off his back foot throwing when the pocket around him was just fine, and he could have stepped into his throw. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love, and I'm still 100% on the Bryce Underwood hype train. He did some really good off-platform throws, some really good sidearm throws to get the ball out. He had some touch on some shorter passes that he didn't have in some games previous. Bryce Underwood had some things and glimpses of things that were good, but he also showed some immaturity, and he missed guys that were open, and he made red zone turnovers, which is a huge no-no for any player on college football, let alone your quarterback. So some of those immature decisions came up and bit us. And I don't fault Bryce Underwood. I think my biggest concern is that we've talked this whole year that the passing game lacks. And even if this second half is any example, compared to the first half, the second half, I think we put the ball in the air maybe 4 or 5 times. Bryce Underwood is not developing because he's not being challenged in games because we just lean on this run game. And I love the identity in the physical run game, but Bryce Underwood isn't throwing out of very many pockets in game. He's usually got a red shirt on and he's in practice. And I feel like that's starting to catch up to us game 9, game 10. You don't see these guys have good rhythm. He's off on some of these throws like we talked about. And I just think it's because we don't ask him to do these things leading up to it. And I feel like this is a culmination of the things that we talked about of not seeing the development games 1 through 8. And in game 9, when we had some open plays, he's just going to miss them.
Yeah, that's the thing I've noticed is, and I'm by no means a quarterback guru, but you're seeing more throws off his back foot. He's not quite on time and on task with his mechanics. I think that's what's led to a lot of this. Now, again, one of the dangers of starting a freshman quarterback is that you're going to find yourself in a game where it's winnable, or a game that like this where it's closer than it needs to be, where he's going to make some mistakes, whether he's the number 1 ranked guy in the country or a former walk-on. He's going to make some mistakes that, you know, he's going to have to put on tape and learn from. And, you know, when you have a guy like him, it's kind of like a couple years ago when, and, you know, he's not on a JJ McCarthy level yet, but, you know, you remember that the Bowling Green game from a couple years ago where JJ McCarthy was turning over the ball like crazy. And I think the rest of the year, maybe he only had 2 or 3 turnovers total. Sometimes you just need to vomit those games up and put it on film and correct it. Now, it doesn't help that it seemed Donovan McCulley got hurt in this game. Another reason why you need to get to a bye week here. But yeah, those 2 turnovers in the red zone are damaging. Whether you're a freshman, whether you're a senior, you're the starting quarterback. You got to own that. You got to wear it. But I'm not worried about him. You see the pithy comments on social media where it's like, oh, well, why'd they pay him the $12 million? Or, oh, geez, maybe they should bench him for Davis Warren, who's now off the injury report. No, I mean, you need him in the grand scheme of things. You need him to go through this. Now, it's nice when you have a guy like Jordan Marshall who would start on probably every other Big Ten team in this conference, including the Ohio State Buckeyes. I have no issue saying that. I think he's a tremendous player. He's a guy who looks like he's right off the same conveyor belt as Blake Corum is. I mean, he gets every single yard, and he was outstanding in this game and a huge spark for them. And really, I know there were some Kalel Mullins games last year where he single-handedly sort of willed Michigan to victory, but in terms of a single game wire to wire performance, I don't know that I've seen a guy kind of put a team on his back like that since, I don't know, maybe Denard was playing quarterback here. I was that impressed with how he played on Saturday night.
Jordan Marshall, to me, since the Alabama game, has been someone that embodies what you want out of a Michigan style running back. And I'm sure there's other programs that come to mind like Wisconsin, Iowa, Stanford, But these programs that have the identity of we're going to line up with big boys, we're going to run the football at you, you're likely going to know where it's going, and we're just going to bash you anyway. And I'm going to criticize that here in just a second, but I have to respect and admire Jordan Marshall for what he's able to do. Like you said, consistently falling forward, making yardage that doesn't exist for most backs. That's the thing. There's so many backs that you give the ball to in situations that Jordan Marshall finds 3 yards that every other back is -1 or net 0. And that's such a huge positive. That was what Blake Corum was so good at, in my opinion, among other things. And so you've got to be really thankful for Jordan Marshall. I mean, Justice Haynes being out is such a huge hit for us, and it doesn't seem like he's coming back anytime soon. That's a pretty serious boot that he's in there on the sideline. I don't know if we've talked about what his injury is or if we know, but I got a feeling Jordan Marshall is going to be the guy as we go into the end of the season. And can't say enough about how gritty, tough, and I feel like the team kind of embraces that. I do think you can't quantify with data what it does to your team to see a running back that's just a bad mother, you know what. And that's what Jordan Marshall is. Marshall's short for mother because he's a bad dude and he hits you in your face. And I love the way he plays the game. I think the offensive line kind of carries that with them, and it gives them a little bit of an edge. I wish it would rub off a little bit more, but it does start with there. Your culture of your offense is always going to start on your offensive line and what your running backs do. So the fact that those 2 units are going is good. I just hope we're not too little too late in the passing game, because Bryce Underwood and the passing team looked like what they should have looked like in week 2, but it's week 10. And that's my concern.
I think what I'm seeing with the passing game is that my preseason concern that the infrastructure isn't as good as it needs to be is the reality. Now, they've done a good job at times of extracting every bit of potential they can out of it, but um, it doesn't matter if you have great wide receivers, great offensive line, great run game, though. Your quarterback's got to play better, and that's a good learning experience for him. He's been a guy where we've talked about doesn't make a lot of the same mistakes twice, at least in terms of the minutia. So you would expect him to get better from that. Justice Haynes, just using context clues, the best case scenario at this point seems like he'll be back in time for the Ohio State game. Now, you buy yourself a week with the bye. You've got a couple games coming up against Northwestern Maryland. But I got, I'm concerned about that, because when you bring this type of effort to a game against Purdue, a team that's 2-7, going to be 2-10, there are no gimmies the rest of the way. If they bring this type of performance to Wrigley Field, Northwestern can beat that. Maryland can beat that. Purdue didn't have the horses to do that tonight. So that's a concern for me, is being shorthanded, and how much, maybe not with Haynes, but with, a Jimmy Rolder or a Cole Sullivan, or maybe some other guys who are sort of nicked up here. I'm really uneasy about just, put them on ice till the Ohio State game. Like, it's very important that I think this team gets to 9 wins before that Ohio State game. So that would be pretty much all I have on offense. I think the offensive line, listen, they ran for, I think, over 250 yards again this week. So that's a feather in your cap for those guys. You're starting 3 redshirt freshmen up there, not noticing them as much as an issue earlier in the year. So you can argue there's progress made there. And I see we have a super chat here from Isaac Thomason for $4.99. He says, the special teams coordinator has to go like now. 2 block punts. Returners don't know how to return, and we never send anyone at the punter. It's not in my best interest or our best interest to say who needs to be fired, but you guys know what. You guys watch the games. We watch the games. We know what it looks like. There were a lot of outlier things that happened in this game tonight. The special teams being shitty was not one of them. That's been an issue for what, math is hard, 22 games of the Sherrone Moore era now. I mean, you have guys that we saw last week. You fair catch a kickoff when you have 30 yards of space in front of you. Your punts are being blocked. Your returners don't know how to field the ball. I can't say I'm with you professionally, but I won't insult your intelligence by saying that something doesn't need to change there either.
personally, I feel like I've had a lot of questions that I've talked with people at the gym and just friends socially. And I am of the opinion, at least of right now, I could be swayed that the conversations surrounding firings of coaches, head coaches, position coaches, I think in general, I don't you know not of what you speak. Because do you really want to be in a position like Penn State is right now, or LSU is right now, or Florida is right now, or Oklahoma State is right now, where they don't know who their next head coach is going to be? Recruits are, who knows what's going on with recruiting. I mean, you are completely hitting a reset button. Now, it's different when you go after a coordinator. And when it comes to the special team coordinator, I would 100% agree with you that when you go to do your accounting at the end of the year and you're Sherrone Moore and you think about where do I need to make adjustments in order to maintain my position as a head coach, that's a place that you go. One thing I wanted to say before we move from offense onto defense was that I thought I saw some more development of the playbook from Chip Lindsey today. I think that the development in some of those chapters got pulled out after Bryce looked a little off and had some turnovers, and the game needed to be sealed away via the run, and it got really boring and really dull again, which we've seen those chapters plenty. But looking back at what happened in this game, the tight ends got involved, not just one, but multiple tight ends, which is a criticism that we've both shared of the offense and Chip Lindsey and the game plan. The distribution of the targets, the ball was getting moved around. We saw some more freshman receivers. Number 6, I'm always the worst with names, but number 6 went out and had a drop, but ran some good routes and was available. Channing Goodwin got back out on the field. I think you saw less usage of Samaj Morgan, which I think is deserved based on performance. And that's all I'm saying when we go to that receiver specifically, is that there hasn't been enough production to warrant the targets. So I thought that you saw some things from Chip Lindsey and the offensive coordinator that made me go, where's this been? This is good. Again, I'm a little concerned that it's just too late of an addition for these guys to find a rhythm to have a passing game that you consider to be a complement to the running game. Our passing game is toddlers and crayons, and our run game is college level calculus. And it just doesn't match. It doesn't fit. And I don't think it's going to produce the ceiling of the offense. We're not going to see it this year. And it just is what it is, but it's also a young team. So to think that you're going to see the ceiling of a team that is this young may have been foolish on our part.
You hope to see development, and there is in some areas, but it's not, we've talked about this for several weeks now, where you have these individual sort of moments where you're like, that's something you can hang your hat on, or let's see more of that. Let's see more of the tight ends. Let's see more of the screen game. Let's see more, um, of the wrinkles that they've had in the run game. But maybe because I don't have to go under the hood and maybe do a diagnosis of this, but um, maybe it's youth, maybe it's coaching. I'm not 100% sure, but it just hasn't come together yet. And I'm with you. I don't think it's like an NFL team where like you're enjoying the season, like a rebuilding NFL team. You're enjoying the season. You're thinking, hey, if you make the playoffs, it's equity here for your players. But you could also watch it knowing, like, hey, when the draft comes around, we need a wide receiver. We need an interior offensive. Think that's sort of how I'm starting to view this. As we go through this year, it's becoming clear maybe what the checklist for the offseason is, which no one wants to hear about that right now. But um, I just don't know that they're going to have enough time to reach that, like you said, the rhythm that they need to get to. Michigan Go Blue 1234 for $1.99 says, "How concerned are you about the McCauley injury?" I After the game, I came right down here, so I haven't seen post game press conference yet. I mean, anytime a guy has to leave a game, you're concerned about that. I don't recall what exactly led to him leaving the game. I know. To switch over to defense quick, Jay Sean Barham, first snap of the game, which he moves back from defensive end to linebacker. First snap of the game, he comes off the field. It looked like maybe clutching his wrist or clutching his chest, immediately in the tent, and then up the tunnel over here at Michigan Stadium. So I'm not concerned because I don't know the severity of it yet. But I didn't know last Saturday night that Justice Haynes was hurt enough to be in a walking boot this week. So we'll just have to see what happens when adrenaline comes down, and we'll go from there. Um, I see a super chat from William Johnson, but maybe no question yet. Uh, Once that pops up, we'll read that. Ramez Herrick for $2 says, this looks like 2024 Pro Max with bigger screen and battery. I think that's an iPhone reference. One of my criticisms with the iPhone is that despite new additions each year, there's incremental progress at best and maybe some regression in other areas. Maybe if you want to make that comparison, that's apt here. I'd like to give out an offensive game ball, though. It's easy this week. Jordan Marshall.
Because it's such an easy one, I'm going to go to the offensive line, and I'm going to go to, I can't remember his first name, Frazier, as the left tackle, 77. He had himself a hell of a game today. In run blocking, we had a lot of cuts or a lot of runs bust off or cut off him. And coming in as a freshman, he got his clock clean stepping in for Link in his first play in college football. And the man has put his cleats in the ground. He wears the 77 with pride. And I thought he had a tremendous game. And you can't have a good game as a running back without a good offensive lineman. So someone needs one game ball. 7-7, you get mine.
Yeah, whether it's against two of the worst teams in the Big Ten or not, you've run for over 500 yards the last 2 weeks. You don't do that without moving the trenches, setting a tone, establishing some sort of physical dominance. So uh, I'm with you there. Defensively now, this is a game where, again, you had the one long bad drive in the first half, and then the drive at the end where they bring it back within a score, don't get the 2 point conversion. But other than that, even with the youth, like I could chalk up a lot of maybe some of the miscues that we saw tonight on the youth, the injuries, the inexperience out there. It's a little disappointing because it seems like there are sort of these longer extended drives at times when maybe there shouldn't be, but it's also football. This is a scrappy Purdue offense that I do think is well coached. I don't know. I don't think they have good players, but I think they are well coached. What'd you make of what we saw from the defense tonight? I don't know that we're going to spend a whole lot of time over there today.
I thought defensively, aside from not being able to get off the field and seeing some of these extended drives, we played really well. I'm always going to be one that time of possession isn't something defensively that is a top priority for your performance. Yes, you want to get off the field, but if they're going down the field and they're not coming away with any points, I think your defense is still playing pretty well. So I thought defensively we did pretty well. And again, you always got to take into consideration how often are they out there uh, with your offense, and is your offense establishing drives? And early on in this game, I mean, I don't remember what the numbers were, but I think in the first half we saw the ball for 4 minutes to their 20 or something. So it was a wild. I know that's not the right number cumulatively, but it was a wild distribution. So for the defense to be down guys, I mean, you're in your third depth at safety, third depth at linebacker, and still playing good ball. I mean, I thought that they did a pretty good job. Aside from the extended drives, the Barham moved back to linebacker. It's one of those things that I've been saying over the past few podcasts that I thought that would be productive. I'm pretty optimistic about both Barham and McCulley's injury, only based on context clues that if usually guys are hurt, athletic trainers are walking up with them. There's usually guys that are helping them with their helmet. Both those guys walked up on their own power with only one trainer or no trainers. So I feel like the bye week's going to do them well, and you'll see at least those two guys make it back in and play significant snaps with our next game. That being said, I thought defensively there was a little bit too much leaky stuff. But again, you're out there so much. Missed tackles, times where, hey, it's 3rd and 5, they catch it at 3, and up the first guy in just slips them and they get 6. And Purdue, that didn't hurt us, but you play against Ohio State at the end of the year, or some of these other good teams, and they sustain those drives and they turn into points. So got to find a way to get off the field a little better and a little sooner. But overall, kind of a gutsy defensive performance, considering that, I mean, we're to our 30th, 35th guy that I think we were going to have in the game start of the season.
I don't have much more to add than that. I would like to sit for a moment on Derek Moore, who had 2 sacks in this game. I think that's 4 games in a row where he's had double-digit sacks. 8.5 officially. You go to a place like Pro Football Focus, they don't chart half sacks, so they'd give him 9. This is a guy who had a bit of a slow start to the year, but now you're looking at a double-digit sack season, and let's just, there's 3 regular season games left. I think the team record is 14, and both Ajabo and Aiden set that in 21. I don't know that he gets there, but the way he's playing right now, he might come darn close. And there's been some to be desired, I think, with the defensive line this year. Maybe more so on the interior, but this guy is really rounded into form. And you're looking for maybe that guy on Michigan's roster who heads into the spring at the top of someone's draft board from the school. To me, he's number one with a bullet right now. I was very impressed with how he played tonight.
If you have a guy that can play from the edge and be as dominant as Derek Moore shows to be at times, he ended drives on his own. And that's if you have a guy on your team that can do that, that as a defensive coordinator, that's such a weapon. And uh, glad to see him come on so strong, especially as I think we're going to need him as the season nears an end here. But overall, he's just been consistent. He's been good. But I feel like to talk about the flip side, where's the other side? Where's the other pressure? Where's the defensive tackles today? That's something that I was going to hit on the podcast is if you are sustaining drives and you're getting – they had some good rushing yards. They had some chunks in there. And I feel like at defensive tackle, Pierce, Payne, Ina, those are some guys that we need to see you making some plays in the backfield. They're doing a good job, and Ernest Hausman had himself a hell of a game. That's another guy. I mean, Ernest Hausman is the Jordan Marshall of the defense, in my opinion. Just a tough dude that just shows up all the time. Spoiler, he gets my game ball. But I love what Derek Moore is doing, but it was one of those things that, man, this is a Purdue team that's had how many snaps of offensive plays, and we don't have a single D tackle with the TFL. Another guy hasn't shown up on the stat sheet. That surprises me. And with a defense that I think played relatively well, you look for where were those gaps. And for me, I feel like at defensive tackle, we don't have those injuries, and we don't have the production that I think you should see in a game 10 against Purdue.
There was one point in this game, and again, I don't have the box score up in front of me, but the broadcast showed it where Purdue had run 33 plays on offense, and Michigan had run 11, and that's a shared burden. That was after they had gone on, I think, a 9-minute drive, 16 plays, 75 yards. Michigan just had the quick scoring drive, which, hey, if you're barely on the field, but you're scoring 54-yard touchdowns, you'll take that. Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, I was going to go with Houseman. I was going to go with whoever you didn't take between Houseman and Derek Moore. So I'll go with Derek Moore for my game ball. Don't have a whole lot of questions about them. I think when push comes to shove, lights are the brightest, which they won't be as bright as they are right now on November 30th. But that Ohio State game, I think that defense is going to come to play. I really do. And he's going to be a big part of that. Both Derek Moore and Ernest Houseman. That's pretty much it on defense. I think we can move to questions now. We probably have time to let's take 3 of them. So whatever is starred in the chat, producer Megan, we can go ahead and bring those up. It's from Richie Valens. He says, serious question. Can anyone say they've seen any real improvement on the offensive side of the ball this season? Well, to start, I do, even with today's performance, you have a much better quarterback than anything they threw out there last year. I think that your running backs, there's no disrespect to Kalel, love Kalel, no disrespect to Donovan Edwards, legend. This is a better backfield tandem when both Haynes and Marshall are healthy than last year's. They're more explosive. I think the rushing numbers would bear that out as well. And I don't think the offensive line for most of the year has been, I won't even see as good. Last year's offensive line wasn't good, but those guys have racked up a lot of production with this year's offensive line, I think not being as good as last year's was, at least early in the year. I think they're getting better. Andrew Marsh is a find as a true freshman. I'm mining here, but yeah, it's just too many individual teases and not enough sustainability on that side of the ball.
I'm going to say I've seen some small amounts of development. I almost relate it to inflation. You expect organic development at some point, don't you? I mean, so there's been some development. They haven't stayed the same since game 1. My question is, have you seen enough to warrant retention of certain coaches by position? And I know I said I don't want to talk about firing them, but I am doing the accounting. So at the end of the year, it's not like, okay, let's sit down and analyze. You've got your analytics right in front of you. I think the offensive line has gotten better. If we're talking offensive side of the ball, the offensive line has gotten better, especially considering the youth that they have there at that position. I feel like in general, the running backs have been solid. Tony Alford has done a good job since coming over from Ohio State. Receiver wise, compared to last year, those people are going to come at me for this one. Our receiver room's better. That's saying something, but I think our receiver room's better.
I don't think that's a hot take at all.
Andrew Marsh is a better receiver than we've had. Donovan McCulley, when healthy, he doesn't get the targets he's supposed to get, but he's one of the better receivers that we've had. We don't utilize them very well, but I would say the receiver room, as far as the people that are in it, are generally better. Our quarterback at position is better. I don't think we're coaching him and getting him the tools he needs to be a college level best quarterback. Right now, I see him as the best high school player in college football. That's what Bryce Underwood is. The best high school football player in college is what Bryce Underwood started as week 1, and he still is week 10. So that might answer your question, Richie. But we have better players. I don't know if they're better developed. And that's what I think the biggest question. You answer that question, and you can answer it with a yes, then I think that you're a national contender because the talent, I think, is coming. The prestige of the program is there. We've got to put these guys in positions to win with our scheme, and then we've got to develop them from when they get to campus to whenever they go. And I think that there has been some development. Is it marked enough in each category to warrant, yeah, this is the right staff, the right team, just give them more time? I don't know that answer yet.
And that's – Richie, that's a great question. It's probably something I'm going to write about during the bye week. As we kind of take a look at this, like 9 games, when they had a bye week after whatever it was, 4 games, that's like, okay, that's a young team. Let's see where this is going. This is 9 games now, and there's a big sample size here and a lot of growth that needs to happen. Growth that I would hope would happen 3-4 weeks ago. So it's a fair question. We can bring up another one here. This is from, sorry, bad eyesight. Diedrich Tupper. He says, would Bryce be hitting his freshman wall with a higher caliber wide receiver room? I'll be honest. You could have Jeremiah Smith out there tonight. You could have, insert All-American here. But when you're bailing out of clean pockets and when you're not seeing the field well, there were a couple times where at least, he bails out of a clean pocket or when you think he should scramble and run, he tries to dump a ball off to Andrew Marsh, and that one was intercepted. I don't know, better, obviously, yes. I'm not going to say that better talent would not help them. Without question. I mean, the drops on its own, they're probably, I think that number's probably in the 20s now through 9 games. That on its own is an area that would be better with a more sure-handed, proven receiver. But I think particularly the last 2 weeks, let's not forget, 2 weeks ago on this field, he looked like Jared Goff out there. He was 21 for 27. He was taking what the defense gave him. He was patient. He was protected well. That has slid the last few weeks and started at Michigan State. And tonight, I think was, I know they pivoted off of throwing the ball at Michigan State. I thought he performed worse tonight when they tried to give him that opportunity to get going. So, no, I think his wall is entirely on him. And it's a long season, man. They're 10 weeks into the football season. They had 4 or 5 weeks of fall camp. He's played more football in the last 15 weeks than he probably did all of last year. So it's an adjustment. And I think the bye is going to be a good time for a reset and recalibration. You have any thoughts on Diedrich's question there?
If what you're looking for is the limiting factor to Bryce's growth, I don't think it's the talent in the receiver room. Do I think more talent in the receiver room would help him look better? Absolutely. Sure. But I think today he was overwhelmed with a pretty basic playbook. And sure, that's partially his fault. I'll give him some blame. But I also think that's Chip Lindsey's fault and Sherrone Moore's fault for not giving him more earlier in the season. Today, I love that you saw play action and the tight ends get involved. I love that you saw some sprint out to both directions, sprint out left, sprint out right. on some of those plays, he looked tremendously uncomfortable, like he was in an unfamiliar spot. And the reason he appears unfamiliar, at least to the best of my knowledge, is because he's unprepared. And the person responsible for his preparation is Chip Lindsey. So to me, he would be higher up and achieving more potential if he was being challenged and groomed more by whoever his direct handler is. If it's Chip Lindsey, then I would say that's where I go first. But I feel like the play calling and the limiting of the playbook early on in the season has led to Bryce Underwood looking underdeveloped later in the season. He would be better if we would have challenged him more early, but we said, no, we'll shut him down in Norman, Oklahoma, so we don't overexpose him. No, we'll shut him down at USC because we don't want to overexpose him. Now he's struggling to hit some basic stuff because he hasn't done it a lot. And sure, that's on Bryce. You should hit basic, but I also feel like Chip Lindsey shares some blame because you haven't asked him to do this enough for him to be comfortable doing it. So that's kind of where I stand.
And I think when you have Justice Haynes out too, like your offense fundamentally changes a bit where someone has to carry on more. And it's obviously Jordan Marshall bears the brunt of that, but your quarterback does too, whenever you lose one of your best offensive players. So it's a growth process. It's a maturity process. Let's take one more and then we'll get out of here on that. It's from Don M. Don M gets the last word tonight. He says, question, why couldn't post-national championship Michigan figure it out the way Indiana did so quickly? To put it bluntly, Kurt Cignetti is one of the best coaches in college football. Sherrone Moore is not yet. Kurt Cignetti brought players from James Madison that are better than Michigan's players over, and a lot of them are still there this year. I just think he's a force of nature. I think that's, when you do the Indiana comparison, and everyone's comparing themselves to Indiana right now. That's why there's 12 Power 5 head coaching jobs open at the moment. Whatever the number is, it seems like 12. I'm sure it's not, but he's a force of nature in the way that Jim Harbaugh was, where there's this gravitational pull. There's this, attention to detail. There's this, he's kind of a bastard. Like he's going to twist the knife and make you feel it. I don't think there's some recipe other than he's a better coach and has better players at the moment, including the quarterbacks he's had the last 2 years. So to me, that's the simple one for me. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Indiana or Cignetti as you compare it to Michigan.
One thing that I'll preach on my soapbox and platform is that I think Cignetti brings with him a culture and a mindset and a standard for how things are done. And when I've seen some of the stuff that's on Cignetti, I eat it up because I'm a disciplined type guy. The hardest worker in the room is typically the guy that's going to win, not the most talented. And I feel like Cignetti's a guy that has fostered that culture and brought guys with him. And yes, he does well in the transfer portal, but it's not the talent that he's getting. It's guys that fit his system, that also fit his culture and the chemistry of their locker room. I feel like when I watch Indiana, they execute and they do things that are precise. They run on the inside of the hash on their seam routes to make sure the quarterback can throw it 3 yards on the inside of that hash to make sure the defender cannot get to that ball. And all 11 guys, the tackle knows that the quarterback has to throw it inside the hash. It's just, that's how queued up they are. And when you see execution like that as a former player, it is beautiful. And to me, the only way you get that type of execution is when you have very disciplined and well-coached, well-prepared players. So I think it has to do a lot with their coaching, has a lot to do with their habits and how they prepare their players for each game. I think Sherrone Moore, as much as I like Sherrone Moore, let's be honest, Sherrone Moore was handed this team post-national championship with 3 head coaching games to his name as an interim head coach. To say that Sherrone Moore was going to get handed the keys to this program after the national championship and have it figured as well as a Kurt Cignetti, I think is foolish. Now, you didn't know Kurt Cignetti's name, more than likely after that national championship year, but I still am of the opinion, and it could be swayed, that Sherrone Moore is figuring out how to wear the pants at University of Michigan as the head coach, and he's going to be faced with some tough decisions at the end of this year. When we talked about the accounting of what coaches and in what positions do you maintain those coaches and retain those jobs, but I think that the biggest thing for me is Sherrone Moore, and I look for this all the time, is Sherrone Moore developing the culture that you want at Michigan? Is this the identity of the program that you want for your team? And are you seeing development? And throughout the season, after we evaluate it in its totality, I think you have to look and see, is Sherrone Moore doing that job or is he not? Is he doing it well enough to give him more time? And, I think you have to admire what Cignetti's doing. And then as a coach, kind of take notice and say, what's my culture and what am I trying to preach? Because you can't be the next Cignetti. You don't want to be the next Cignetti, but can you establish a culture of your own, an environment of your own, and grow it like he's been able to?
I'm kind of glad this is the question we're ending on because I had a point I wanted to make that I wasn't sure if I'd be able to make organically. Maybe it'd be something we'd have to save for our Monday night show, but um, the things that ail this team for the most part, first off, they're never ready to play night games. I mean, they are always off to slow starts in night games, and they played 5 of them this year. Remember when it used to be kind of a treat where, oh, maybe you'd play one, maybe you'd play Notre Dame at night in week 2 or week 3, and then later in the season you'd go play a road game somewhere else. Now it's ridiculous. It's not an excuse. Sorry, that's a tangent, but this was a team on Saturday night that looked like, I have to choose my words carefully here. Halloween was on a Friday night, and to me, it looked like there were a lot of guys that maybe had. And I know there's a team hotel, but maybe things are a little bit loose this week around the building. You're playing crappy Purdue, and then you got a bye week coming up, and it's Halloween this weekend. And oh, once the game's over Saturday night, we get to celebrate and all that. Um, I'm really tired because this will be a talking point coming out of the bye week that, oh, we went back to the bye week. We went back and we worked on fundamentals during the bye. It was buy-in week. And now again, last year, you preach that. You came out and you dropped 50 points out of the sky on Northwestern, which is who you'll play at Wrigley Field in 2 weeks. We heard it after the Oklahoma game. You dropped a bomb on CMU. Granted, it's CMU. But I just get tired of, a couple weeks ago, you win a really impressive game at home against Washington. And then diminishing returns the next week against Michigan State, fall just short of a complete bottoming out against Purdue. I guess I'm tired. I get sort of tired of the habit that's developing with this program where, they might have one good week where you're like, you know what, that's the most complete performance that they could have put on the field, and you want to build off that. I guess I get tired of going backwards, and I get tired of talking about what needs to improve during the bye instead of, really when you get to a bye week, you should be talking about getting healthy and getting your eyes back for the stretch run. I I can't talk college football playoff right now. I'm not gonna, I can't do the Ohio State thing right now because this team plays like crap against Northwestern. Northwestern, I think, is good enough to beat them when that effort tonight is what we see on the field. So I just don't think there's enough discipline at the moment. I think there's an immaturity, and also, not just on the field. I think there is an immaturity in how this staff prepares the team as well. Maybe a bit of hubris, if we're being honest. And I hope they don't learn the wrong lesson from the last few weeks, that it's just win and survive. They have a lot that There's a lot to unlock here that I'm worried, like we said earlier, that they might not unlock here. And that would be disappointing.
I am very hopeful that this staff can harness this young group of guys, find maybe a couple in the portal to join them, and recognize what I think the ceiling is for some of the talent that is at this team. And I think that is probably the basis for most of my frustration. It's a lack of patience. It feels like I have vision that maybe Chip Lindsey doesn't have, which is crazy considering I do all my watching from my house. But there seems to be so much more of what this team is capable of because of the talent that sits in there at each position. And then you go out and you watch a BYU and they have a dominant offensive game, or you go out and you watch a Utah. I don't know why I'm picking that state specifically, or you go out but you get what my point is. You'll go out and you watch college football on a Saturday, and Norfolk State put up 500 yards and their quarterback threw for 400 all around there. SMU, threw it around on Miami. And you wonder, well, how many times am I going to watch Michigan as a fan of Michigan? And that's never really our team. And I just feel that even if it's not required to win games, in order to develop some excitement, Ohio State has the receiver room that it does, because guess what? Recruits at home watch Ohio State on Saturday, and the best plays come from Columbus if you're a receiver. I hate to say it, but it's true. You watch the NFL on Sunday, the guys on the NFL team making the plays at receiver probably came from Ohio State. And I worry about where the future of the program goes if, like you said, if it's embraced for any sort of duration that it's okay at Michigan to just hold on to your ass and win games. I want to develop to a team that wins by 40. I want to be developed to a team. I'm not a gambler, but I'd like to cover every now and again. And I just feel like it's concerning that none of us know, is Sherrone Moore and some of these guys the guys to get us there, or are they not? Because you see these glimpses, but they're really just temporary glimpses in what is typically a bowl of primarily shit. So I want the sugar, not the shit. That's what I want.
Yeah, I would have much rather been on here tonight and talked about a 42-7 win where we're saying, yeah, but it was Purdue. I'd rather do the yeah, but it was type of show than the why was this as close as it needed to be type of show. So, but you take the win, 7-2. They've matched their regular season win total from last year. I know that's nothing to write home about, but a great chance here to surpass last year's win total in the next couple weeks. And who knows what happens with Ohio State? Maybe you get to a bowl game, you get to a 10th win, 11th win, be out. I don't know. Range of outcomes is still very wide, even though it feels like we kind of know what this team is at this point. Before we get out of here, I also want to shout out our friends over at Lewis Jewelers. You can visit their location over at 300 South Maple Road in Ann Arbor. They've been great partners of us and of Michigan Athletics over the years. So head on over to their location at 300 South Maple Road or online at lewisjewelers.com. Also tonight, as we wrap up here, we are brought to you by ourselves at thewolverine.com. You use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our site for only $1. That's going to get you way past the holidays at this point. It's going to get you to the new year. Who knows? Maybe we're talking bowl game or college football playoff by then. But a lot of stuff coming over at the Wolverine, and basketball season starts Monday. Excited for that as well. So that's going to do it from here at Michigan Stadium. Ryan joining us virtually. Appreciate Ryan Van Bergen every week joining us after a game. We will learn a kickoff time for Northwestern on Monday, I believe, unless they exercise the 6-day window. So hopefully we have some clarity on that. But be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more from the Wolverine staff. It's the best time of year for us. We get to double dip here with football and basketball and the like. So for Ryan Van Bergen, for producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broome, signing off from a frigid field here at Michigan Stadium. Thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you again next time.